Good evening, my dear friends. We are back at the AHA conversation. This is the fourth episode, and I'm thoroughly excited today to bring to you Guy Stephen Needler. So, before I actually do his formal introduction, I want you to know that Guy joins us from UK, and he's an excellent teacher, a writer, a beautiful healer. And the last year, I actually attended a workshop with him. He was here in Mumbai. He conducted a workshop in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Pune. And just the area of his work, and but the simplicity that he put it with, and the experience that all of us could get, we were all by the end of it just in awe of him and his work. So I'm completely excited to introduce to you Guy Stephen Needler. Guy Needler, he's an MBA, MSc, CENG, MIET, MCMA, initially trained as a mechanical engineer and quickly progressed on to be an electrical and electronics engineer. However, throughout this earthly training, he was always aware of the greater reality being around him, catching glimpses of the worlds of spirit. This resulted in a period from his teenage to early 20s where he reveled in the spiritual texts of the day and meditated intensely. Being subsequently told by his guides to focus on his earthly condition for a period, he scaled back the intensity of spiritual work until his late 30s, where he was reawakened to his spiritual roles. The next 6 years saw him gaining his Reiki Master 4-year commitment to learn energy and vibrational healing techniques from a direct student of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, TM, which also included a personal development undertaking, including psychotherapy as a course prerequisite using the Pathwork TM methodology described by Susan Thesanga, with further methodologies by Donovan Thesanga, John and Eva Pierkos. His training and experience in energy-based therapies have resulted in him being a member of the Complementary Medical Association. So the list can go on. He has written, along with his healing abilities, his spiritual associations included him being able to channel information from his spirit, including constant contact with other entities within our multiverse and his higher self and guides. This is the channeling that has resulted in the history of gods, and along with 6 other published books, I guess it must be 8 other published books. I think he has 9 books already, and I must tell you, they are amazing. As a method of grounding, Guy practices and teaches Aikido. He's a 6th Dan national coach with 38 years of experience and is currently working on the use of spiritual energy within the physical side of the art. Guy welcomes questions on the subject of spiritual physics and who and what God is. So there we are. I don't want to come in between you and Guy. Welcome, Guy. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you. Stay.
It's a delight to be on. It's a delight to be here, Dr. Preeti. Very honoured to be able to share some information with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that I'm actually looking forward to your workshop again next year, and I, as we started having these AHA conversations, right in the beginning when we started, I knew that I wanted to ask you to, so that a lot of these the frequencies, the dimensions, the way that you explain, because right now everybody is very scientific minded, and the whole concept, the way that you simply explain things to us is so beautiful. So I really wanted you to, for a lot of people here who may be joining, who have never experienced any of that, the way that you can bring that, I wanted everybody to kind of understand that. So So you can start sharing something about, how you got into it. And
wow. Well, basically, I know in the background now that this has been part of my life's plan, so to speak, and I've known for a long time I had to do something. I hesitate to say the word important, but more to do with educational. So, in terms of helping people understand their environment and who they are, and why they're incarnate, what incarnation means. But the where we exist within is not just the physical environment, and the physical environment that we can see and detect isn't all there is that's to do with the physical environment, because there's other frequencies associated with it. So when I started to be taught the healing side from Helen Stott, who was a first generation student of Barbara Brennan, and was taught by Barbara and John and Eva Piriakos, who were the trio that got involved with the start of this more scientific understanding of healing and the greater reality, along with Susan and Donovan Tasenga, who developed a method of cleansing oneself, basically, so that we try to remove the ego from, or should we say, understand the ego better, so we can work around it and work with it, so that we can keep ourselves in a way that is navigating through the incarnation in a sort of a nominally karma-free way. I started to also become aware that part of the work involved channeling, and when the process of being taught the healing work finished, I noticed that although I had a couple of attempts to hold a healing clinic, that sort of failed. And I thought, well, I don't understand why it's failed. I spent a long time doing this. And it was a big personal commitment. In fact, the homework involved was much more than my degrees. It was a lot of hard work. But part of it enabled me to channel information. And I was meditating in the morning every day before I went to work. And I used to share the information with my late wife, because she was also interested in it. And we used to share the car to go. I'd drop her off at the train station, then I would go completely the other direction to go to work, because we worked about 50 miles apart from each other, but the house was in the middle. And every day I'd pick up something new, and that newness was associated with getting in contact with other entities and other levels of detail associated with it. I'd also previously had a bit of an attunement that had happened in Sweden back in 2000, and I had to go back to Sweden 5 times to have it sort of topped up, so to speak, by other entities that worked with me, that I realised later I was part of, but this all came out later. But one of the things that was interesting was that I started to be able to project my consciousness into different locations within what I now understand as being the multiverse, which is a function of the structure of the entity that we're part of, and that I'm told to call source, but you can call it God if you want to. In Hindu texts, there's more than source. There's the absolute, which is that which is beyond source. And so I started to realize I could project my consciousness using a number of different methods. Initially, they were very slow, very slow. But later, I became more and more adept and developed better ways. And then eventually, I can just go there straight away, or I can maintain my level of connectivity. But the interesting thing is that the structure of where we are is a part of Source or God, and that structure has a linear representation, although in reality it's not linear. It's quite amorphous, and everything exists within everything else. So when we start to look at some of the quantum theory, it starts to link in. But from a linear perspective, it's the best way for us to understand this, because even though it's amorphous and everything is linked, everything is attached to everything else, or linked to everything else, either directly or indirectly, or within and without each other, it can be explained in a linear way so that we can progress in our understanding. And so I understood that the multiverse, which is a part of the structure of Source and which we're part of, is created through 12 full dimensions. And those full dimensions operate in general in the same way. apart from the first full dimension, because that houses the lowest frequencies. So the second until the 12th full dimension splits out into 3 subdimensional components, and each of those subdimensional components further splits out into 12 frequency levels or frequency bands. And each of those frequency levels or frequency bands has the capability of and does sustain a self-contained simultaneous universal environment in its own right. Now that means it's there as a static condition. It's not parallel. There are parallel universes, and we do create parallel universes and parallel multiverses, but that's a function of our choices as sentient entities, which are individualized from that which created us, which is our source, our God, if you want to call it that. So we're smaller individualized units of God within a part of its structure, trying to understand it for itself, so to speak. So getting back to the structure very quickly, 11 of these full dimensions have a total of 36 each sets of frequencies. So we have 11 times 36, which is effectively 396 frequency bands, and therefore 396 universes. But the first full dimension is very unique, because it only ends up with 12 frequency bands, and that's because the structure, although it can split out into 3 subdimensions, compresses back into a composite subdimension because of the lowest frequencies. So that only allows these 12 frequencies to be created, and all those 12 frequencies are required to create a single universe. So we have a really unique situation where we have one full dimension which has a composite set of subdimensions, only allowing 12 frequencies, and those 12 frequencies are so low in frequency that they need them all to create one universe. So again, we have a unique universe, because the physical universe is the only universe that has 12 frequencies associated with it. All the other universes have a single frequency band, which is much, much finer than all those 12 together. So we have 12 frequencies plus 396, which is 408 frequencies, but only 396 plus 1 universe, so 397 universes. And the physical universe being what it is, it's so difficult to exist here. The difficulty in existing here creates the possibility of an evolutionary progression above and beyond what we normally experience in the rest of the multiverse. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. So before we come into how you started getting the structure of it, when you understood all of this, for a person who's completely new, who's not really, connected to the frequencies, how does understanding these frequencies, or that there are dimensions, there are parallel universes, what is the impact of this on a normal person's life that you have seen? How does it help somebody to understand some of this?
It doesn't matter how much detail they understand. It's moreover understanding that it's there, and there are individuals who are capable of working with it or tapping into it, so to speak.
Right.
Because what it does is it creates a condition where we move away from the thinking process or the thought process that the human body is what we are. We start to understand that the human body is just a vehicle that we use to experience these low frequencies, because we're supposed to experience the frequencies and the environments that they create, and the other entities that are occupying these different frequencies and interacting with it and creating things and uncreating things, to allow us to evolve, experience, learn, and evolve. So if we understand that there's a bigger environment, and that where we are right now requires rather, for want of a better word, rare circumstances to experience it, i.e. our sentience and the energy associated with our sentience, you can call it a soul if you want to, needing to incorporate itself with a vehicle so that it can experience that environment in the most efficient way possible, in the correct way, then we start to realize that actually the physical body that we're in, and other physical forms in the rest of the universe, not just the human body, is simply a vehicle. And that the incarnation process is a process of the integration of the soul with the body to experience a different environment. It's a bit like us putting a diving suit on to experience being under the sea. Think of it in those ways. The sea's a lower frequency than air, so we have to put an environmental suit on to experience the lower frequency of the sea, whereas we don't in the air. But from the perspective of the physical universe, it's a lower frequency, so we have to put on a suit. The human
That's a
body,
beautiful
to experience it.
Image that you've given us to really understand. So when we say lower frequency, there is no judgment or anything there. It's not like a, where we're not saying like in a sense a hierarchical, a higher or lower in a sense. Am I right on that?
Lower frequency, there's a number of different ways of understanding lower frequency. One's in terms of the environment that we experience, and two is in terms of how we react to that environment and how we become connected to it. And the connection to it, or the desire to remain connected to it, is what we call karma. And that's the addiction to the thoughts, behaviors, and actions associated with being here and not wanting to leave here. Whereas in real terms, we should be wanting to remove ourselves from here as fast as possible to go back to our normal high frequency environment. But there's no judgment in being high frequency or low frequency. It's just our individual experience and interaction with that experience and the environment and the others within that environment and that experience.
That's beautiful when you said it's one, the environment, but the other is our reaction. So what's there in our hand. And I think that you brought us to another very significant topic that I wanted to touch for today. And that is karma. In India, of course, we all have heard about karma. We all know that it's what you sow, so shall you reap. But your book, Avoiding Karma, and I heard your talk on that. I think that gave me a very different perspective, something that the way that you brought certain things in that. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about karma and the 5 different aspects that you had spoken about.
Well, karma is much more complicated than we think it is. It is, but it can be described very simply as addiction to low frequency existence, and the thoughts, behaviors, and actions associated with that. So the general concept of karma is that it's to do with how we interact with others, which is right, and that if we do something detrimental to somebody, then to negate that karma, we have to receive that detrimental action back again to negate it. And to some extent, that's right, but it doesn't matter whether it's the same person. It can be, we can experience it in a different life, or we can experience it the same thing in this life. But that's simply a method of removing a karmic link between individuals or an experience. And that's where most people are, basically, in terms of their understanding of karma. But really, it's to do with, and this is where the 5 different versions come into it. It's about being associated with being here, being addicted to want to come back into the human form. And when we're addicted, some individuals don't want to leave the earth. And this is where we get this idea of ghosts coming from, where the sentience and the energy associated with the sentience tries to stay low and tries to interact with others who are incarnate. Or sometimes they want to take the opportunity to take over a vehicle as a walk-in when that individual is abusing the vehicle by using drugs or alcohol, those sorts of things. Because when that happens, the physical form is so low frequency that the soul can't stay in it. It temporarily has to get out. Well, that allows other souls who want to incarnate or want to stay incarnate to come in temporarily. Now they can't stay there because of quite clearly the body is assigned to the soul that's the primary soul who's animating it. But the objective of karma is that we don't think in terms of a way which is specifically to do with being here. So the thought process is about, wanting to be of a certain status, for instance, wanting to have lots of physical wealth and money, wanting to have lots of belongings around us, needing to have them, needing to have certain foods, for instance. To I must have food. You see, people that get large bodies because they're addicted to food, because and food, physical food, is physical. So being addicted to food is a karmic response. Being addicted to the thought processes surround status, belonging to certain societies, wealth, is addictive in karmic and brings us down. Having too many material belongings is also karmic, because we have to maintain them, or we have to be responsible for them, or we have to, or they can control us. For instance, we like to show people that we've got a wonderful house. We like to show people that we've got a wonderful car, even down to our partners. This idea of having a beautiful partner is also karmic, because we're not seeing the inner light within individuals. We're always seeing is the physical form, the suit, the suit of the body suit that we're incarnated into. So the whole thing about karmic having 5 different actions is simply about thought processes, status, material wealth, desiring belongings, and desiring and things like addicted to things like alcohol, food, and drugs, and these sorts of things, and even addicted to things like adrenaline rushes, where people have certain sports where they sort of jump off buildings, for instance, with parachutes, or jump off the side of cliffs with parachutes, or even deep sea diving can be classified as an adrenaline-based sport, and racing motorcycles or motor cars is also the same thing. So anything that is associated with being here is potentially karmic, and the Avoiding Karma book gives 104 different examples of how we can change our thought processes, and some of them are very simple, and some of them are very obvious, and some of them are very diffuse and diverse, because the different types of karma that we can go into. We can go into group karma as well, downward cycling karma, upward cycling karma, which is high frequency.
Cycling karma.
Yeah, we can. If we experience something, and in terms of an experience with an individual in a certain environment and certain circumstances, and we respond badly, we create a karmic link. Then that experience comes back to us. Our guide and helpers bring us back into that experience, so we can have another go at responding properly. But if we don't respond properly, for instance, we don't get the chance to refuse, let's say, the opportunity to sample drugs, as an example, then we go backwards again. And the more we interact with this, and the more we like the experience, the low frequency experience, the lower we can go in frequencies. So then we go into a downward spiral of karma, where it's difficult to get out of. And the only way to get out of that is with people who love us and help us, and our desire to move out of it, and then we can go into upward spiraling karma, which is positive karma. So we can also link karma into 2 ways. Karma being the association with the physical as a generalized subject. Low frequency karma is getting totally addicted to being here. Higher frequency is removing the addiction. And the objective is to remove the addiction, because once we've removed the addiction, we can navigate through an incarnation without attracting any sort of karmic link or karmic content at all. And once we've done that, we've mastered the incarnation totally, and we don't need to incarnate to continue our evolutionary progression.
Beautiful. I think that brings to light so much. A lot of the times when people, talk about karma, we only think at the level of action. We're not really thinking at the level of thought, or this addiction to materialism. A lot of these things that you brought to light, food addiction. And I remember when we were here doing the workshop, and you just mentioned, Indian food is very karmic, and I was like, so that's the first thought. I almost was like wondering, why did you say that? And now I understand. After I kind of saw your book, that yes, we really crave that food, that kind of food. So yes, It's in a sense addiction and attachment, right?
It's an attachment, yes. If it's a bit anything that we're addicted to, we
Yeah.
have difficulty in living or experiencing what we call a joyful existence without it. So
Yeah.
it's people who smoke, people who drink. If there's nothing wrong with experiencing these things, as long as we don't depend upon them for our continued existence in this incarnation. So somebody can be very, very rich. They can be a king, for instance. But a wise king is one who realizes that it's simply a transient condition that's only available in this particular incarnation, and that actually material wealth can go just like that. So and we can't take it with us from one incarnation to another. So thinking of it as being, what we are is complete nonsense, because it's simply something we can experience and work with, and we can do some real good with it. We've got. I mean, people who are philanthropists, for instance, who are very wealthy individuals, but realize that the wealth is no good just in their own hands, and they can do good with it. Helping people to improve their own existence and their own ability to experience this incarnation is a wonderful way to have wealth, basically, or any form of material condition where if you're just giving it away.
I got this beautiful sutra from you, Kai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Experiencing joyful living without this. That's such a beautiful sutra that I'm taking back.
Thank you very much.
It's as simple as this, that I say I'm addicted to tea, and can I actually be joyful without having? So if I'm not getting my cup of tea, can I still be happy without it? Can I still not be grumpy in the day? If I'm not getting my cup of tea? So that's a huge sutra. It could be as small as this.
Well, the thing is this is where some of the Buddhist teachings come very useful as well. If we look at there's lots of religions in the world, but this, in essence, they've all come from the same place, the same understanding of how to be connected whilst being incarnate. And the different teachers have just had their own different way of explaining it. But over the years, mankind has twisted it a little bit, but depending upon personal preference, and also the lack of the original teachers being there to put them back on the straight line. But Buddhism has a really good aspect, and one of them is mindfulness. And so if you're experiencing something that you like, and it could be potentially addictive, then we have to be mindful of the delight in the experience of eating a certain food, for example, whilst also being mindful of the potential for it to be addictive as well. So it's being mindful of what we're doing, how we're experiencing it, and enjoying what we're experiencing it, or being in joy of that experience, but recognizing that experience is a single experience and needs to be contained as a single experience that we may experience at some other point in the future or some other point in our existence, is the way to consider it, and enjoying that moment, being in the moment, and then letting go of the moment so we can experience the next moment later, is the important way to think about it.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd like you to share a little more about frequencies, and how connecting, when you've been kind of traversing through the frequencies, and actually teaching so many people do it. How does it help people? Does it help people to change their life? Does it help them to heal from anything? And particularly in times of decision making, can it actually help when we are not so connected? Because of course we need to see things from this perspective and the other perspective. So how does it really work on that?
Once we are, and everybody can do this, by the way. It's not just special individuals. This is available for everybody. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your education is, whether you've got no experience of meditation at all, or whether you're a master. This is available for everybody. So people who are listening in shouldn't think that, I'm not sure I can do this. Of course you can do it. It just needs a little bit of focus and dedication on a daily basis, by the way. And everybody can do it. But when we're moving into this area where we are divorcing or detaching ourselves from the material world, and start to raise our frequencies by doing something as simple as opening our chakras, doing the chakra opening exercise. And if you want to, I can I can share the links to that as well later, so that the listeners and the watchers can participate in this exercise themselves. We start to become a higher frequency, and when we're a higher frequency, we start to get more connectivity with who and what we are. So we start to move away from the selfish condition associated with being in a low frequency environment, this sort of this karmic condition of being addicted to being here, or thinking that the human body is all that there is, that we are, and that our consciousness or our sentience is associated with the organ that we call the brain. And we start to realize that we are connected to much more things, whether they're in the higher frequencies associated with the physical universe, or the other frequencies associated with the rest of the multiverse. And so when we know this, we start to become more aware that the objective of being here is to interact with others in an efficient way, and not a karmic based way, which is creating arguments or being angry or being jealous, or all these other things that are low frequency thoughts, behaviors, and subsequent actions. And when we start to understand that the human body is not all that there is, and that we can start to see how we should respond or behave and act in different situations, in different environments, with different individuals, then we start to do it in a way which is more educated, because we understand how we should do. And therefore we give ourselves time to think and then respond. And when we do that, we give a considered response. And therefore we don't go down any needs to experience that again, because we give the perfect response first, rather than having to do it 2 or 3 times. And so when we do that, we end up being in a calmer situation. Not calmer. We're more relaxed, because we understand that we can do things in a better way. There's a bigger environment that we're part of, a much larger part of us which is in existence, of which we're a small part of, but the level of experience of that larger part is a collective function of smaller individualized units of itself, experiencing various different parts of the multiverse and the physical universe as part of it. And so our demeanor changes dramatically. We understand that this is simply an environment for experiential progression and evolutionary progression. We understand that every body on the planet is simply a soul that's struggling with working with low frequency environments by being incarnate, and that those and this being incarnate in essence removes or reduces, certainly this frequency, a lot of our communicative ability, our connections with our higher self, or Godhead, or oversoul, or true energetic self, whichever you want to use. They all mean the same thing. And our connection with Source, or our Creator, our God. And so when we start to understand that, and feel on a deep level, because through experience, through experiential understanding, not just belief systems, then we can start to behave and think and act in a higher frequency way, and we can start to help others in their incarnation. So even our enemies become our friends, because we understand that they're just a soul that's struggling through their incarnation. Being in an incarnate state is like trying to get to the center of a maze whilst being deaf, dumb, and blind. Whereas being a higher frequency and being more connected is like being able to hover over the top of the maze and seeing where we should go to, and then dropping into the maze at certain points. And that's what it's like. When we're here, we have 5 senses. When we're disincarnate, we have thousands of different senses and different ways of experiencing things. It really is like being deaf, dumb, and blind. But understanding this at a fundamental level allows us to work with others in a neutral and loving way. That means that all our prejudices, all of our desires, all of our hopes become one with everybody else, and we help everyone else. So it doesn't matter whether they're a thief, criminal, a murderer, somebody who's always being selfish, or somebody who's being godlike in the way that they interact with others. We're all the same, and we can work with each other on a collective basis in a communal community-based basis, then we're all going to progress faster. And actually, when we do that, we all benefit. We all move up the frequencies faster. So we help each other to help each other up the frequential ladder, and in doing so, we evolve faster as well. So it benefits us.
That's a beautiful image again that you gave. That it's like going about the maze and kind of seeing where to go also. So thank you for that.
And it really is like that. It's like having a helicopter view of what, or even like a Google Earth view of what's there. You can zoom into it as well and see what's happening. Whereas when we're down here, all we see is buildings and trees. We can't see above the buildings and trees.
That's beautiful. So you mentioned that everybody can actually do the process. And yes, that's something that I really loved about you, where you made the process so simple in your workshop when we kind of attended the whole chakra work, the process, or the other processes. You made it so simple for us. So yes, towards the end, Guy, I would request you to do some short process for everybody here. And for all our viewers, if you have any questions, I would request you to put it now so we can actually take it up. And I'm just kind of seeing, is there anything else that... So also, Guy, there's a different understanding about enlightenment. I heard you speaking on one of the shows. I'd like you to throw a light upon enlightenment, also our life purpose. So both of these topics.
Okay, well, let's do with enlightenment first. Enlightenment is a function of our self-development whilst incarnate. And enlightenment and self-realization are the same thing, basically, because it's about raising our frequencies through personal self-developmental work, meditation being a core process, by the way, that makes us a higher frequency and allows us to see who and what we really are, and within what we're working within and why we're working within it. And so when we can see this, experience it for ourselves, not just have somebody else tell us and us believing them, when we can experience it ourselves, then we become self-realized or enlightened, because we're experiencing it ourselves. And one of the examples I like to give is that if somebody tells us, I mean, we've not experienced this before, by the way, if somebody tells us they push the button on the wall or the switch on the wall, the light comes on, and we've not experienced it ourselves and we've not seen them do it, then we're taking their word as being true. We've created a belief system based upon what they've said to us. We believe that what they're saying is real, is the truth. It's only when we see them doing it, we see them pushing the button on the wall, the switch, and the light coming on, that we start to think, wow, yeah, they're right. It's true. When we do it ourselves, we go over to the wall, we push the switch and the light comes on. Then we've moved away from a belief system into an experiential system where we're experiencing it ourselves. Then it's only then when we go to certain levels of depth of experience where we start to understand what happens between the switch and the light. There's electricity flowing between the two because the switch opens and closes a contact. And then where does the electricity come from? Oh, it comes from the fuse box. Oh, where does the electricity come from the fuse box? It comes from the national grid. Where does it come from the national grid? Oh, there's generating systems, there's power generating systems. And then there's a theory about power generation. The more you go into it, the more depth you understand, the more self-realized you become, because the depth of self-realization increases. So the depth of knowledge within self-realization increases. So it's all about raising ourselves to a frequency where we can start to see how things work. And not just see it, but interact with it as well. And that becomes enlightenment. So self-realization is recognizing it, and enlightenment becomes the depth of knowledge associated with that self-realization. And that's important. And in doing this is part of getting there is spending time to divorce ourselves from being here and raise our frequencies by meditation, by doing the chakra opening exercises, which are a core and fundamental foundation of the traversing of frequencies work. Yeah. And the rest of the question, Dr. Preeti, you'll have to remind me, because my
So I asked you also about life purpose.
So the life purpose, yes, of course. The life purpose is in essence a function of the life plan. And the life plan isn't an in-depth thing. It's a series of goals. It's a series of experiences and interactions that we wanted to do whilst we're incarnate. The fun thing is we have individualized free will associated with those experiences. So the goals are wanting to experience certain things. Like it could be, I want to experience how to drive a car. I want to experience how to fly an airplane. I want to experience how to become a doctor, how to become an engineer. How we get there is the individualized free will. So if we use the goal of traveling from Mumbai to Bangalore, then we think, right, okay, the goal is to travel from the one city to the next city. How we get there is our individualized free will. We can use a motorbike, we can use a car, we can use a train, we can go by plane, we can hitchhike there, we can walk there. We can, if we wanted to, we could go by boat by going around the landmass and then doing some other things. So the individualized free will is how we get to the experience and how we experience it, the depth of experience. Whereas the life plan, which also has this aspect of what's our purpose, is that what we want to experience. So our life purpose is integrated within the plan. The purpose is to experience these different things. On top of that, it may be sharing sharing our experience or our expertise with others, and helping them benefit from that. For instance, creating something or an invention that somebody might be able to use, being a doctor, being a dentist, learn to be a bus driver. So you're sharing your experience with others so that they can benefit from your experience. So the life's purpose is integrated in the life plan as part of the individualized free will of how we get to that particular life, that goal within the life plan, or series of goals, of course.
That's beautiful. Okay, so let's look at the comments. Oh, Anil Balotia ji is here. He says hello. You remember he had also done the workshop. Raj Kaurji is saying hello. Divya is asking if we as individuals are evolving but our friends aren't and tend to trigger us or mock us for being in a more holistic state. How could we deal with that without the relationship being absent?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it is something that we all go through from both sides, actually, because when we have people who are becoming higher frequency, they can leave us behind in terms of their understanding and even in terms of our being able to interact with them. Sometimes we can't even see them because they're a higher frequency. The thing is that we have, from our perspective of hoping to move upwards in the frequencies, we have to realize that we evolve in different speeds in different ways. And that when we have people that we've known for years, and I've got friends who I've known for 40 years, who I thought were receptive to the same thought processes, the same concepts, the same self-development opportunities, don't, or aren't, or can't go with you, and sometimes argue with you, saying that you're that one is deluded or inventing things or creating nonsense. Then all we can do is work with them on their level. If we want to maintain them as a friend, we have to maintain a level of interaction with them that they can cope with. And that may be not spiritual at all. It may be so we have to be a chameleon in some way, shape or form, if we want to, interact with them still. Sometimes we have to leave them behind and then, send them blessings with love to say, I hope you progress in the way that you desire to with part of your life plan, and help. And just send them love so that there's no negativity between us. There's no karmic link between us, and realize that they will do it in their own way. And that's the most important thing. Just send them love and best wishes, pranams, etc., to help them continue in their best way. But don't lose faith in what you're doing. You know that you're on the right way because you're a higher frequency, and you're getting little snippets of information, intuition, connectivity. All of these things are encouragement to continue to go. So don't worry about these people. They've got their own way. They will get there eventually. there is nobody on the planet in this incarnation or other incarnations subsequently who are going to be left behind. Everybody will progress, everybody will evolve, but everybody's doing it in their own way. And we should send them love and send them best wishes, and in the hope that they will do it and they will accelerate in their own evolutionary progression, whilst we're doing it in our own way and accelerating our evolutionary progression.
Wow,
So,
that's such a beautiful way to
yeah,
explain. Thank you so much, Guy. And thank you, Divya, for bringing up that question. Neha says very beautifully explained. And there's another question. How do we know what our life plan is? Purpose is understood as goals integrated with free will. How do you come to understand or see clearly what our life plan is? Also, guys, so happy to see you.
Thank you. Basically, when we're working in a higher frequency way, we tend to work more with our intuition, which is clairsentience, if you want to use the original sort of French way of saying things. Clairsentience is cosmic knowingness or intuition. Clairvoyance is using your mind's eye, and clairaudience is using your mind's ear. But once we're using any of those modalities of connectivity, we can start to pay attention to certain things that come into our existence and certain desires to change into certain directions. So when we're on Earth, we tend to think in a linear way, a logical way. We like to see proof for a certain decision process. When we see a question in mathematics, we like to see how the equations are worked out that gets us to the answer. Whereas when we're using intuition, or we're linked into the higher frequencies of the greater reality, we get the answer straight away. We know the question and we know the answer. We don't need to worry about how the equation explains the journey towards the answer. We just need to know it's there. And that's the same with when we are more connected. The more we work with our intuition, the more the less we need to use logic, the less we need to have physical proof of it being there. And so when we get a desire to do something, we need to understand that's part of our life's purpose, that's part of our life's plan. And that will be given to us not only by our higher selves, or our true energetic self, or Godhead or Oversoul, but it'll also be given to us by our guide and helpers who are here, not incarnate, of course, but they remain in the energetic environments. But they're giving us little tips, little hints as to when we should start to move in different directions, when we should start to experience different things, interact with certain people, embark on different projects with different people, embark on different experiences with different people or our partners, or go in different environments. So it's really listening to our heart. It's feeling certain things. I mean, I knew I had to do something to help people. From when I was, before I was even a teenager, I knew something important was going to happen to me. That obviously that's using the word important is egotistical, but it was, it needed to be done because it was something I had to do. So anything we have to do as part of our life plan can be classified as important to us. let's personalize it a little bit. But the thing is, once we start to feel these things and think, oh, that desire to do it is important to me, then that's when the purpose comes out, because the overall purpose of all of us is the same: to experience, learn, and evolve in the ways that we've chosen as part of our life plan before we became incarnate. The thing is to recognize when those change moments come into vision with us. And I can remember a number of times where I saw an opportunity, and one of them is to do my master's degree in science, and it was it just came from nowhere. And most people who were given the opportunity just said, "No, that's not for me." But I had a real deep feeling that I must do this, and it was a bizarre subject. It was to do with imaging technologies, and there's a reason for it later that I'm going to get involved at some point with experiments in getting camera technologies to be able to properly see things like the auras and the energy templates. But we don't have the technology to support it yet. But I know how we're going to do it. So understanding some of the science behind it was very important at the time, and it also assisted me in being able to write as well. The reason for doing degrees and master's degrees and becoming chartered engineer is not just about the learning; it's about learning how to write, how to interact with people in different modalities. And so that was part of my learning as well. So I really did feel I had to go in certain directions. It was a case of, I've got to go over there. You don't need to know why you've got to go over there. You just need to know you've got to go over there. So go over there. Trust your intuition. When you trust your intuition and you see that your intuition was correct, you start to realize that intuition is more powerful and more accurate than logic. When sometimes we use intuition and then we logic it out, and we don't go the intuitive route because we've used logic, and then we subsequently find that the intuitive route was right, don't be disappointed or don't beat yourself up. Just realize that you're being given an example of how good your intuition is and how much more accurate it is over logic. So the life purpose is about getting your gut feelings about something, getting your intuitive feelings about something, following your heart's desire. That's where you'll find out where your life's purpose is. Don't try to think about what
beautiful.
Yeah. So very quickly, don't try to think about what you're doing in 20 years' time. I'm going to be this in 20 years' time. That'll just confuse you and will, for want of a better way, create a blockage, because there's things happening in little steps. So just follow the little steps.
That's really beautiful. And also because a lot of the times when people are in spirituality, they tend to also go on the other side as if they don't have to do anything. So even that, when you kind of mention that, desire also, if it's coming to you to do something, that intuition in a clairsentience or a clairvoyance, if it's coming to you and you're guided, so even that's part of your journey.
Yeah. Well, spiritual complacency is really easy to get into. It's really easy to get into. And the ego wants to keep us low frequency, because the ego is a temporary personality that's created through incarnation. And of course, we don't lose our personality. It becomes integrated with the bigger part of us when we lose that, when we finish this incarnation. But we also lose our ego more when we become higher frequency, because we start to realize who and what we are. And so the thing is, the moment we start to think we've made it, I've got to this level, I'm now a guru, or now this, that's the time the ego takes over and starts to bring you down the frequencies. And becoming spiritually complacent in terms of, I don't need to do meditation today, or I don't need to do my sutras today, or I don't need to do my mantras today, or I don't need to spend half an hour meditating today, is the start of becoming spiritually complacent and starting to lose your frequency. And it's ever so easy, and we don't notice it unless we're really self-observant, because it's like falling asleep. So and you can see now how what's happening to the world, because a lot of people have become spiritually complacent, and as a result of that, we've gone down the frequencies, and certain things are happening around that wouldn't have happened had we stayed aware of our spiritual progression and realize that spiritual progression never ends. We can always go to a deeper depth. We can always go to a higher frequency. It never ends. It's an existence-based workload. It's not just incarnation-based workload. It's with us for all of our existence.
Wow. Okay, so Bhavisha Shetty is asking, any small techniques that we can practice each day to make the gradual shift from low frequency to higher?
Yeah, there's a obviously we can open the chakras every day, and I can share a recording for that for people can have and use. And there's also a PDF file, which is very simple. It's although a lot of the stuff with the correspondence course is professionally created, this is just me doing it, so I'll give it away because it's just as powerful. But we can do physical things like meditation and focusing on detaching from this reality and being at one with the environment, and one with ourselves, and one with our creator, and one with everybody else. We can also think in a non-selfish way, and help people when they want it. I mean, being of service is a very difficult sort of balancing act, because people want help, and sometimes people can be dependent upon that help, and people sometimes don't want the help. So we have to learn how to be of service in the right way, and the right sort of depth of service as well. So being of service when requested and to the right level is important. There's an old saying: it's better to teach a man to fish than to give a man a fish. Or a person a fish, because if you teach them to fish, they can look after themselves, they can sustain themselves. If you give them a fish, they won't sustain themselves. You have to keep giving them fish. So it's about doing that. So it's about thinking about individuals as being other souls, and that they are also embarking upon a very difficult exercise of trying to experience something whilst being incarnate, whilst they've lost most of their senses. They've lost most of their connectivity. In fact, nearly all of it. And they've lost the ability to remember who and what they were and what they were supposed to be doing here. It's like having amnesia. The low frequencies create an amniotic state where we can't connect with who and what we are. So during the primary incarnation process of integrating with the fetus, we start to forget what we were, because we lose connectivity with it, and we create this individualized personality called the ego. So it's really about being caring and sharing, understanding, empathic to a certain level. I mean, we can be too empathic because we can take on board somebody else's energy too much, that can affect us. So it's giving ourselves boundaries whilst also being inclusive as well. And if you can do all those things, but moreover, just realize that everybody is struggling in their incarnate state, and they've all got a role to play, and they've all got and irrespective of what they're doing, it's all evolution. And being non-judgmental, that's the big one, then you'll progress.
Yeah. So Anilji has put up 3 questions. I'm just going to put them all one by one. When we have planned our life experiences at soul level to balance our karma of many lives, and we also have free will, how does it affect our purpose of balancing the karma? Then he says sometimes free will can disturb our plan. And I'm just reading it because I think it's the same thought process.
What can we say?
Or can we say that so-called free will driven more by the blueprint of the soul plan to perform the action, to go through experience we planned?
The first misconception is that we can fail our life plan. We can never fail a life plan, because we can fail a lot in our life plan. We can never fail in our life plan because they're just goals. If we don't experience them in this incarnation, we just add them on to the next one, or we realize that maybe we weren't supposed to experience them yet. So the thing is to realize that free will is just the vehicle that we choose to use to experience the different goals as part of our life plan. The depth of experience is up to us. I mean, we can choose to experience something in a deep way or a shallow way, and that's okay, because some people, they just need to touch certain things, and that's the experience. They get to a certain level of expertise, and that's enough, and then they move on to something else, and that's enough, and etc., etc., etc. Whereas others, their experience is really deep, like they become specialist surgeons, for instance, in understanding the endocrine system or the way the brain works, for instance. So they can be really deep into psychology, or really deep into how DNA works. So it's that's the depth of understanding is based upon what they want to understand. But the free will is simply the vehicle. And if you miss for instance, if you miss a bus stop, okay, it doesn't really matter if we've bypassed it. What matters is that you may have realized it, and you may go back, for instance, to experience it, or you may think, okay, Okay, let's move on to the next thing, and that's okay as well. So the thing is not to worry too much about what making what we think in the human terms are as being mistakes, as long as we can use those potential mistakes as a different way of experiencing something. And if you want to experience it in a different way, or a better way, so to speak, then go back and do it again, and that's fine. It's individualized free will is a gift. It's a gift that only incarnate souls on this planet have got in all the physical universe, and so it's still work in progress. So don't worry if your free will is still work in progress at the end of your incarnation, because believe me, it'll still be work in progress in 1,000 incarnations time. It's just the means of experiencing something and allowing us to choose how we're going to experience it, when we're going to experience it, and the depth we're going to experience it.
That's beautiful. I love
Well,
that.
I hope that answers the question.
Individualized free will is a gift. That's really beautiful. So Pooja is asking, do we exist in parallel universes with those we love?
Not necessarily. A parallel universe or a parallel environment is something that we create through decision-making processes. So, as an example, we may choose to get off a bus and then get straight into a different bus, or we may choose to walk when we've got off that bus. And so, if we had a choice and we've gone that way rather than that way, then what happens is that although the focus of our sentience may appear to be in one direction, actually we create another condition where we've gone that way as well. So we can go in two directions at once. And so so those changes in experience through our parallelized versions have multiple different experiences that may or may not include partners. We may have chosen a different partner to one we would have chosen had we stayed in one different place, for instance. We may have taken a decision process to allow us to move in one direction rather than another direction. I mean, the number of individuals who think, oh, if I'd have done this, I'll be with this person now rather than this person. It doesn't matter. You work with what you've got. But in the knowledge that another part of you is with that other person. So in terms of parallel conditions, our true energetic selves and subsequently the smaller aspect of that true energetic self, which is the soul, can be dealing with thousands of different versions of ourselves concurrently, knowing that every possible potential opportunity for experience that we've had is being played out concurrently, including the potential or the possibility of possibilities, or the potential possibility of possible possibilities, etc., etc., etc. It's all what ends up being fractalized. But when the evolutionary opportunity of being in that particular reality comes to a dead end, comes to an evolutionary dead end, then they start to collapse back into the next mainstream reality, so to speak. So to answer the question in very simple terms, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
So I would like to, I think, probably say Pooja has just recently lost her mother, and she lost her father also when she was pretty young. So I think probably she's also kind of wanting to ask, are they kind of connected, and probably it's also hinting towards that. So
in a different reality, maybe her mother or father didn't, but physical forms didn't demise in that way. Maybe there was something that occurred that that created a condition where that particular experience or that particular disease didn't happen. For instance, for example, they didn't start smoking, or they didn't step out into the road at a certain time, and so these things can happen in different ways, or somebody could have stopped them from walking out in the street, for instance, at the same time. So there are going to be parallel conditions where her parents are still in existence. They're going to be parallel conditions where they didn't get together.
Okay. And okay, Anaji is saying wonderful. Thank you. Excellent. So I think we've covered a lot of all the questions here.
Thank you.
And so, Guy, can you guide us through a process. It would be wonderful to, if you can take us through a short meditation or a process where.
Okay, so let's have a short meditation then. Okay. Let's do a short meditation on just opening 2 or 3 chakras just to raise our frequency temporarily. So if everybody just sits still, and your back straight, and straight back to chair if you've got one, feet on the ground, palms uppermost on their upper thighs, closed eye vision focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in the same location but is different to the spiritual or third eye chakra, which is in between the 2 eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And one of the really achievable ways of raising one's frequency quickly is to open the chakras. Now, the chakras are always open. They're always doing their work. But to open them more by using a visualization process allows the allows more energy to come in and lifts our frequency higher. So the chakras can be considered as cones, as a receiving cone, little vortices inside them. And if we can visualize them growing larger, for instance, if we can make, with the root chakra, its point of origin is where the 2 legs meet the lower body, and we can visualize it growing larger. It's usually around 300 or 30 centimeters, sorry. It is maximum, or its largest size. Then we rotate it clockwise. We just ask it to rotate clockwise. So sometimes we have difficulty seeing these things. So we can also ask our chakra to extend to its largest condition. Let's ask our root chakra to extend down towards the ground to the largest size it can go to, and then ask it to rotate clockwise. You don't need to visualize which way clockwise is, but it's how you're seeing it rotate from looking out of your eyes. But just use the mentally spoken words. I'm rotating my chakra clockwise, and it'll do so. And you can use the same process for the sacral chakra, and the same for the solar chakra, and of course the heart chakra, the throat chakra, spiritual or third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. But let's just deal with the first 3 at the moment. We don't need to worry about the rear chakras on the horizontal chakras, because the front chakras are our psycho-spiritually are our intention, and the rear chakras are our action. So whatever we do with the front chakras, the rear chakras will do automatically. So we don't need to worry about the rear aspects of the sacral, solar, heart, throat, and spiritual or third eye chakras. So if you can mentally ask your root chakra to grow or get larger, moving down towards the ground and rotate clockwise, that'll lift you up to the first frequency. Okay.
Have you finished?
And now, do the same thing with the sacral chakra. Allow it to grow from its point of origin, which is about 7.5 centimeters below the navel. Grow to about 30 centimeters in size. Smallest part of the cone towards you, largest part of the cone further away. And then ask it to rotate clockwise. And that lifts us up to the second level. And you'll feel the difference. You'll feel tingling or temperature, okay, or pressure around your skull or around your third eye. And then do the same thing again with your solar chakra, which is its point of origin is about 7.5 centimeters above your navel. And again, ask it to extend to its largest size, its maximum condition of about 30 centimeters from your body, And again, ask you to rotate clockwise.
Then it will be 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. And that brings you up to the third level. You can feel the difference. Closing them down is simply asking them to stop rotating one by one. So ask the solar chakra to stop rotating and ask it to shrink down to its normal size, and you'll come down to the second level. Then you can do the same thing with the sacral chakra. Ask it to stop rotating and to shrink back down to its normal size, which is just below the navel, 7.5 centimeters below the navel. And that will bring you down to the first level. And then do the same thing with the root chakra. Ask it to stop rotating clockwise. Ask it to shrink back to its normal size. And that brings us down to the earth level. And you'll notice that even though you've just closed your chakras back down to their normal condition, you'll still feel energized, like you're on the third level. Okay. You can slowly open your eyes. And that was a very quick 5-minute exercise that lifts you up to the third level, and you can feel the difference straight away.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I'll send you the links via
Yes.
email, so you can broadcast them to the listeners and the viewers. And thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And friends, this is the website for Guy Stephen Needler, www.beyondthesource.org. His books are available on amazon.in. And on his website, you can also find a whole lot of other things that he does. He offers some online courses as well. And also healing he provides for. So you can look under healing. Am I right, Guy? Under the section healing?
Yeah.
Healing, etc. So you can also book a session with him if you like. And next year, hopefully, with the coronavirus, permitting us, we'll have him in Mumbai in a workshop, and hopefully all of us can attend that. And
there we go. Just sending you the links to the exercises you've just done.
Excellent. Oh, and friends, also you can follow us on YouTube and on Insta as well now, and you can write to us. This is the 4th episode of the AHA conversation that we had. The 5th episode is going to be on 24th of July, where Ganesh is going to be interviewing Dr. Jayesh Shah. Dr. Jayesh Shah is a homeopath, a consulting homeopath and a therapist, having 35 plus years of experience. The volume of work that he has done is amazing, and I would request all of you to again join us there. And excellent. So I'm going to, friends, before you leave, I'm going to just revise a little bit of some of the pearls of wisdom that I'm taking back from today. The beautiful way that Guy actually showed us that how when we are in this physical plane, it's like a suit. It's like a diverse suit that we have worn and we have dived into the water. So yes, the frequency in the water is lower than the air, and how when we are connecting to the higher frequencies, we are actually getting like a helicopter view where we can see things, and that helps us to really know our true selves and take decisions as well. And we had certain beautiful understanding about karma that we got, and so the beautiful insight that I also took from there was experiencing joyful living without anything that we recognize we are addicted to. So karma, also understanding the addiction aspect of it, was really beautiful. So thank you so much, Guy, for taking the time and for this beautiful experience. And thank you, friends, for joining us. Thank you, and a very good evening to all of you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Namaste.